Okay. So the recording should have started. Welcome everybody to the May 2024 Interlibrary Loan Roundtable. I keep forgetting the month and writing November. We do have a pretty full agenda today. We have Michelle from Vermont State University, who offered to come and talk a little about their digital first model and answer interlibrary loan questions. And so thank you, Michelle, for coming to the meeting. And then we will follow that up by hang on. Nope, that wasn't it. Sorry, I muted everyone because I couldn't figure out which one that was. So after we talk about that, we have the reviewing the best practices document, which is on our schedule to be just reviewed every May. And we only had a couple of suggestions to update that. And then we had the question of what's the timeline you use for invoicing or paying for a book when it's been lost in the courier or through USPS. And that is everything, but I will keep us on track with the agenda. But I didn't know how we wanted to start with the digital first model. And Michelle, do you want to just give us an overview of that? And then people can chime in if they have questions after.
Sure, I would be happy to. So mostly I see a lot of new faces out there. My name is Michelle Whalen. I am working on the Randolph Center campus of Vermont State University. I'm also on the Williston campus one day a week. And I am the newest ILL person. I used to do ILL as backup, and starting in last October, I'm the ILL person for this campus. So I didn't actually realize I was going to be doing this talk until I saw the agenda yesterday. Which is fine. It's fine. I just thought I would be attending the meeting. And I see a couple of my coworkers here, Alice from Johnson and Elizabeth from Linden, who are far more experienced ILL people than I am. However, I can talk a little bit about the model that we're using now. And please, Elizabeth or Alice, if I say anything wrong or I'm missing anything, jump in and help me out. So basically, I think people have some questions about our digital library. And we're saying that we are digital first, we are not digital only. So basically what's happening now is our liaison librarians and our faculty librarian are working with our faculty members to decide book purchases for all of the different campuses. If it's a book that is going to be utilized by students on more than one campus, then we are trying to purchase an electronic version first. And that's, of course, in the interest of equity, so that it can be accessed from anywhere. We also have a lot of online students now. However, the liaisons and the faculty librarian are really the people who are making the decision. We are still purchasing physical books on all of our campuses. And it's, as I was saying, it's the liaisons and the faculty librarian who are deciding whether materials are going to be purchased electronically or as a physical book. All 5 of our locations are open for business, and we are happy to loan you whatever materials you need that we have. We're working with EBSCO and another vendor, I guess, right now to figure out what we can do in terms of lending chapters from ebooks. Alice and Elizabeth, have I missed anything?
I guess I would just say, can you hear me? I think I turned my mic on.
Yep.
That folks who are in the communities around the libraries are always welcome to come in person, because right now the way the world is, we don't have a good platform for lending a whole ebook. There are some ebooks now that are available that are DRM free that we can lend for a certain period of time. But anybody can come into the physical library, and it's not as convenient to read on a screen, but you can access things that way in person at any of our libraries as well. I think you covered it well, Michelle. Good job.
Thank you.
And I would add, even just for physical items, we've always been open to the public. We are still open to the public. So anyone from the public can come in and check out, get a library card. If if they don't already have one, and check out physical items.
That sounds great. That was a really great overview. Thank you.
Thanks.
Rutland, I see hands. You're muted. No, I still can't hear you. All right, I will circle back, Rutland. Gary. I am not hearing anything. Is it just me not hearing anything? No. Okay. See. Well, that's not good. Let me see if there's a setting. I hear noise from Gary, but I don't hear
You can?
a voice.
Can you hear me
Oh,
now?
yes.
There. Okay. We have the CCV here in Morrisville, and sometimes I get requests for books that are related to their classes. Should I send them to the Johnson campus to get some of those books that I can't get?
Absolutely. Yes. Yes.
I mean,
We're the
yeah.
University of, excuse me. We're Vermont State University and CCV's library. So yes, you could point them to whichever one of the campuses is closest, and they can always reach out to us online or via email as well.
That's good to know. So I don't have to do an interlibrary loan just to have you guys send it to us here through the mail. So
You do not, and actually CCV students can have things mailed directly to their homes. So it's probably more convenient for them just to reach right out to us and then.
oh, that's good to know so that I have some good information for them. Thank you.
Yeah,
They're certainly welcome to come into Johnson as well, and we can teach them how to use the library system to request things if that's easier for them to have a person help them.
Okay, that's good because now I have that information. I can say you are welcome to go to the campus and get those, because I know they say, well, it's for my class for CCV, and I said, well, that's not really one I can get, or it's going to take me a week to 2 weeks to get it, you know, with a courier. So that usually doesn't work for them.
Yeah. Send them our way. We're happy to help.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Go back to, I can go back to that one. Go back to that.
Rutland. I thought I heard you. I can kind of hear you. You're a little in and out.
Okay, hello. Give it a shot. Speak up, Judy. So, sorry about our technical difficulties. We're horrible about it. So the question was, I guess we don't really understand the mechanism of borrowing. Like, I understand we can have somebody go into, like for us, it would be Castleton, but we don't understand like the mechanism of borrowing an ebook, how that would work.
I think it was ebook chapters.
Okay, so it's only chapters. Okay.
Currently, I would say that is mostly correct. We may have a few random titles because, of course, it all depends on the licensing that we are able to loan. But for the most part, it's going to be a chapter for now. But this is something that Alice and some other folks are working on to, see moving forward as this becomes more and more of a mainstream approach. How can we handle this? How can we, move forward? So for now, I would say if you need to request a chapter, it's definitely safe.
Okay, so if we requested a chapter, how would our patron access it? Yes.
Alice, that'd be a better question for you to answer if they want a right answer.
We would send you a PDF to your email, and then you could forward that on to your patron. they could download it to their own computer or their device and read it that way, or they could print it.
Okay, that helps a lot. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think for an ebook chapter, it would function pretty much the same if you asked for an article. All right. Anyone else?
Are there periodicals that are ebook? They're digital periodicals or scholarly type articles?
Yes, we do have those.
So it would be like per article then, one article at a time?
Correct.
Okay.
And you can do that through Clover, either looking up the journal title and sending a request, or using a blank request and switching to the non-returnable form. And Tenzin put in the chat, sorry, I missed the first part. Does that mean we can borrow ebooks from them? At this time, there's a few DRM free ebooks, but mostly it would be requesting copies of ebook chapters, not an entire ebook. All right.
Yeah. It's great.
All right. Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you everybody from Vermont State University for coming and talking about the digital first approach. And thank you for talking to your vendors about lending ebook content.
You're very welcome. Thank you to all of you who loan books to us as well. We appreciate it.
All right. So next on our agenda is reviewing and approving any changes to the best practices for interlibrary loan document. We first created this. Let me find the right window. We first created this document in November of 2020, and then we left it alone for 3 years, and we updated it last May. So just so that we review it and update it regularly, we put it on for the May agenda every time. And I gave you advance notice of what the suggestions to add were. And so far, the suggestions are to include a reminder that if an item is lost, check with the lender about their preferences regarding payment or a replacement copy before sending, which seems pretty easy. Unless there are vast objections, I'm good with adding that in. Kat. You're muted, Kat. Let me see if I can unmute you. I cannot unmute. I don't know why I can't unmute. Kat, if you can unmute, then you should be able to talk. Oh. Okay. So that was the first one. There we go. All right, Kat, did you have, oh, it says leaving again. Okay, we'll circle back to that. And then the next one was do not request new items unless they have been out for at least, and I put X days because there's been some differences of opinion And we had talked about adding this in before, but it wasn't a big problem, but it's gotten more and more frequent that people are sending requests for items on the day it's published, which is problematic. I was going to suggest until the item has been out for at least 60 days. I don't know if shorter or longer is better because there are some libraries that lend new items, but you have to give them time to receive them and process them and see if their patrons want them. So would everyone agree that 60 days seems like a reasonable amount of time to hold off on asking for a brand new item? I can make it 30. I was just looking for a nice round number to put in there.
60 sounds good because that's our regular lending period anyway. So if it did go out to one of our patrons, it would probably be out for 60 days.
Okay.
That's just VTSU. I don't know what other folks do. A lot of people have a shorter lending period for a brand new book. Here, you can have it for 2 weeks. You're done.
Okay. Um,
You had a question in the chat too.
I do. Okay, so I have a couple questions in the chat. Tencent said a reminder about sticking labels on books, and I think we may have that in there. Not specifically, we don't have that in there. We do have that you should, if paperwork is included, you should return it. If you've added your own, take that out. But we don't have anything about not putting labels on there. I know some libraries use labels when they send them out, but you shouldn't be adding them. So if everyone is okay with on-the-fly ones instead of ones that have been sent out ahead of time, I would just add on to the line of if paperwork, sleeves, or book straps are included, make sure they're included when it's returned. And if you've added your own, remove them. We can also just add right at the end of that, do not put labels on books that you have borrowed. So let me add that. It was so hard to get rid of the labels. Yeah, I've seen some of them. Okay, let me add this in. Okay. And then the next one is Betsy has a question about lost books that are then replaced.
Can you hear
Do
me?
you? Yes.
So, yeah, only if now is a good time for that. But we have some books that have been marked lost, and we've then had communication. Do you want us to pay for a replacement? Do you want us to send a replacement? We've reached an agreement on that, but the book remains in the lost category. And
Oh,
I've asked if that could be resolved, if it could then be marked return, just so I can close out that record.
mm-hmm.
And also sometimes it's the case that the library decides not to replace the item. But from my record keeping standpoint, I love it when I can close a request.
Yes.
And so I wonder if we could have some sort of agreed policy about that, because there have been times where I've had ongoing conversations where the other party is like, yeah, but it was lost though. I'm like, yes, but.
So before we add that, I do have some good news. In Clover, well, in Share It overall, they are working on adding an additional status to mark items closed, which would be like replaced, paid, things like that. So that is on their track for this year to add those in. So instead of adding that to best practices, we have another Share It meeting. Not this coming Tuesday. We have our quarterly meeting coming up, so I will also ask them for the timeline on that.
Thank you.
Yes, and if they don't have one, I will push them some more because the whole group, like nationwide, has been asking for those for a while. Okay. And Gail asked if it is too late to add a suggestion. Her staff is always confused about whether they should mark that they have shipped an item when they put it in the bin for pickup or wait until the item is actually picked up. So you can leave it in will supply until it's picked up and then changed it. Another option is you can mark it to shipped and you can change the ship date. We've done that with some of ours where we mark it as shipped, but the pickup isn't until 2 days later. And so we change the ship date to the next pickup. Okay.
Okay, I have a question, April.
Yes.
Carolina Rutland-Free. I know our best practices, hi first, hello. I know our best practices do refer to our Vermont libraries. And we're doing here at Rutland, we're doing a whole lot more of out of state borrowing and lending. And many of the great rules and practices that we've come up with for in-state don't necessarily apply to these out-of-state libraries who have been extremely generous and are great for the most part. But they'll put these very difficult to remove labels on top of the book, on the front cover of the book, which will give all kinds of information that's meant for the library, but the patron is seeing. And yet, I guess I feel not guilty, but it seems problematic to like strip off these very sticky labels and put our own processing on the book before we lend it to our patron. But is that just going to, we really can't do much about that because they're out of state libraries and they're following.
Right. It's their own internal procedures. So I know a lot of out of state libraries put labels that have who lent it, who it's going to. My advice would be to not remove those because generally they don't like it when that happens. If you're using like a band that goes around, just wrap it right over that label.
Okay, we don't. They get conflicting due dates. That's one of the other challenges. I've been wiping out the due date because I don't want the patron to see that they could potentially have it out for 2 months, when in fact we're just lending it for 3 weeks or possibly 4 weeks. Okay, we'll keep. Nobody's really complained. The out-of-state libraries, they haven't complained. It's just that we've had a huge influx. We're borrowing more and more. At least half of our requests now are coming from out of state. And I don't know if that's trending because of the university libraries not lending, or having hard copy books, or it's just coincidental. But more and more of our loans are coming from out of state.
It might be, some of it might be a move to electronic resources, which a lot of academic libraries are doing, but some of it might just be the specific titles that are requested.
All right, we're also along those same lines. We don't know, we work with Linda at VSS, and we didn't know how to facilitate the successful requests, in that we probably should be giving as much information from the patron up front on our in the request. And that would, or I guess we want your opinion on this, April. Should we be having the librarians, when they do an interview with the patron, should they be asking the patron, are you willing to pay a fee? Is there a maximum fee that you would be willing to pay if indeed this is an out-of-state request?
You could do that. Yes. Typically our process for out-of-state loans is we will look for free lenders first, but if we cannot find a free lender, we will then look at lenders that charge, and we will let you know what those potential costs are. It's still not a guarantee that they will send it, but
Okay.
that's why we mark it as conditional and send it back saying no one will lend it for free. This is how much it would cost to borrow. And we ask you to agree at that time because the fees vary so wildly depending on who owns it.
Yes. So for example, I don't want to take up too much time with this, but for example, it ends up being kind of a sticky situation. So we had requested a book, it was out of print and it got kicked back and unfilled. And then there was a note asking for a patron to pay a fee. We call up the patron and we ask and he says yes. So we send it and say, agree to the condition. And then you know, a couple of days later, it comes back again and then saying it's still unfilled and no, you can't get it even. And then you have to
Yes.
call your patron again and say, no. Can't get
That
it
means that we checked with the lenders that charge. Like we don't send it to lenders that charge unless we know that the patron will pay. So once we send it to them, that means that even though we agreed to pay the fee, they're still unwilling to lend the item.
So if, like Caroline was saying, if we give that information up front, when we know it's coming from out of state, then that could help that process so we won't get in that situation easily.
It could. We would have to change our internal processes first. So I'd have to review it with our staff and how it works with finance and everything.
Okay.
Write that down. But yes, we will talk about that at libraries and I will get back to you. Okay. I'm behind. Let me catch up on the chat. Okay. All right. Meg asked for a reminder to please look at the suggested due dates in the notes, especially in regard to book groups. And I don't think we need to put that in best practices because people should be checking the notes if the little push pin shows up. And I will say people have gotten really great at using that field as notes about the loan instead of a very nice thank you, but everyone's been using that for notes related to the loan, and that's been fantastic. Let's see. Marie uses the next courier date as the ship date. Meg also says the future date shipping. There's a bunch of people that do. That's great. And Kat said that those sticky labels that a lot of academic libraries are using are how they manage to churn through so many requests in a short period of time. And Meg asked one more question. Are there any preferences for noting condition or damage in the notes, either on the sending or receiving end? She tries to add as much as possible. There is no standard for that I have seen. Generally, if people receive an item and it has some damage, they'll note it in the borrower's notes. And I have seen some lenders who put that right in the lender's notes as well, so that you don't receive an item in the mail and think that it's been damaged en route. And Kat also said, when in doubt, she votes for making notes on condition everywhere, at the very least on the paperwork that comes with the book and in the Clover record. So yeah, definitely notes everywhere. Okay, let me go back to my notes. All right, we had just added to the paperwork line, don't put labels on books that are not yours. We all agreed to add the check with the lender about preferences for payment or replacement copy. And the final one that I had sent in by a couple of libraries was if you share a catalog with other libraries, Do not use that library's barcode to create an ILL record in your library when checking out to a patron. And I think because Catamount does internal, that would be mostly the vocal shared catalog, because that has led to some things getting checked in before they're actually returned. And then they go to check them in, or someone thinks it's available, but it's still in transit. So I do not have a dog in that fight, but I do understand how that could be very annoying. And that's kind of the one I want people to chime in on. It seems like a pretty easy one to avoid because a lot of people will use the Clover request number as the barcode. Yeah, what Kat just chimed in with. So if there are no objections, I was going to add that to the best practices document just because it makes life easier for libraries, especially if they have a shared catalog. All right. Okay. So those were the only changes to the document. Oh, Marie.
I'll just add that occasionally for those of us who have volunteers at our circ desk, occasionally that internal barcode or that, vocal barcode will get scanned at check-in, but I always let the lending library know that that has happened. And so that's
nice.
kind of a courtesy, but I think it is important to let them know, sorry, this happened, it's on its way back.
And I'm betting it's really appreciated when you give them the heads up. I would appreciate it. Noreen asked, where do we change the shipping date in Clover? Yeah, it's right near the due date. When you open up the full record, you can do the due date and you can do the ship date. But you have to open the full request record. You can't update it from the list of items pending screen. Although they are working on being able to batch update those as well. Okay. We have, yes.
I'm sorry, it's Caroline again. I just have one question about the series information being included.
Okay.
In the orders. And you gave a really good answer saying that it can be proposed that the libraries include it in the borrower notes for clarification. And we do lend quite a few series, whether they're graphic novels or J series, juvenile series, and they'll have a series number, a series title, the specific title to the book, and on the record that's coming now, there's not even a place for series in the column on the far left, where it'll list, request type, material format, title, author, publisher, but it doesn't have series. So it would require the borrower putting it in their notes that they're looking for a specific number 8 in the series of 25. It would be really helpful.
All right, and I'm gonna double check the request form because I think that I can add a field that would list the series.
Ooh,
or if it doesn't list the series, it would be a space where they could put the series in.
That
would be really helpful because sometimes books are listed by the series, but not the individual book title. So you might, the requester might be looking for book number 3, but all we have is the series name. So we might have the right book, but we might not.
Yes. And the title sometimes is microscopic.
Right. Yes.
On the front page, or on the front cover.
This is super common with graphic novels. Sometimes you need to know the name of the series, you need to know the number, and then every once in a while, there's there's a following series that comes later, and they'll have the same name as the second. You know, it can be really crazy. If
Okay,
you're-
yeah.
don't spend a lot of time with it.
We have a large collection of graphic novels, and we're filling lots of requests for them. So it would just facilitate, it would just save us some time. It would be very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah. Meg, your hand is up.
Yeah, can I just kind of piggyback off that as far as requesting series? I put in the chat, I'm new to taking over ILL here at Burnham, so this may be like old news. But with like requesting series, you know, I get a lot of patrons that are like, I want books 3 through 6, like coming up next. And I've always just been doing like individual requests for those. Should I be doing like a blank VSS request and be like, I'm looking for these 4 on the off chance? Like, no, just still
No.
do individuals. Okay.
Yeah. Because
That's
you're going to
what I
want to
figured.
request for each title, especially if it ends up coming from different libraries. And if you did a blank request, it to VSS, it would only come to us to ask for out of state.
Gotcha. Okay.
And even if it was multiple ones from out of state, we'd still need a separate request for every title.
Gotcha. So there's not like, you know, I see like, you know, libraries that might have the whatever 3 I'm looking for, and it'd be like, oh, that'd be great. But I get that like that's not how it generates out like how the requests go. But is there a better way to be putting
You
those in?
you can adjust. If you find one that has
Okay.
all 3, I would recommend use the multi-copy request form, and
Okay.
then you can edit the lender list, and you could
Gotcha.
send them all right to that library.
Okay, cool. I'll explore around on that. Awesome.
Okay, if you want help walking through it, we can do that.
Sounds
And
good.
the advantage to that is Murphy's Law is that book 6 will always come in before book 3.
Yes, and that's why I've been like wondering about it. I was like, maybe there is a better way, but I also didn't, you know, I get that I shouldn't just be like picking and choosing willy-nilly here to keep the equity of it going out, but I was like, there might be a different way to do it in these cases. So cool. I'll explore that a little bit more. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, I don't think people mind if they get requests for multiple volumes of a series, because they can put all of them in one courier bag and send it along, and then they'll use one of the big courier bags instead of the precious green ones, which are the right size for everything. Okay, let me go back to the chat. Marie asked, did we decide on a number of days for lending new items? So this is not actually for lending. It's so that people won't send out a request. She is arguing in favor of
That's what I
30
meant, April.
days.
Sorry about that.
Okay. She's arguing in favor of 30 days over 60 because you can always decline it, and 30 days gets rid of the most annoying day after this came out requests. So I can put either 30 or 60. I know there were a couple of people who voted for 60 based on their lending policies. So we had initially decided 60. I'm pretty sure I can do a poll. Let's see. No, it won't let me do a poll because I did not add them. Hang on. Oh, there we go. We'll do a poll, and that's how we'll decide. It's my first time doing a poll. All right. It should have popped up. All right. Thank you for bearing with me while I figured out using polls. Oh, the bot disabled. Okay. Oh, it's disabled for a few people. All right. Well, I will just add to them after I close this. All right. I'm gonna give until 1:41. So in one more minute, I will close it. If you're getting a disabled message, just plug in your vote in the chat. Well, geez. All right. Let me go. Okay. All right. Just based on what is coming in the chat, 60 is very much the winner. So we will put 60 days in there. We're still going to have, I think, a few that sneak by, but we will put 60 days in. And Kat also said, well, folks are voting, a heads up that Middlebury College has been migrating catalogs a bunch. So let them know if you're having problems accessing any of their systems. And did you guys go to Alma? Am I right? UVM moved to Alma. Yep, so Alma. Okay. And you're joining a consortium in July. You guys do not slow down. Likely to be chaos. Well, July is a good month for chaos. Okay. So we will stick with these 60 days for new books. All right. I am gonna throw out the last topic of discussion, and it's a pretty good one because every once in a while we end up with those items that disappear in the courier and then magically show up 4 months later with no way of telling us what journey they've been on. So the question I was sent is, what is the timeline that you use for invoicing or paying for a book when it's been lost via courier or USPS? Could be either, but at this point, a lot of the libraries are using courier, so that's more likely. And Kat says the courier gremlins got them. So if a book disappears in the courier, how long do you as a lender wait before sending an invoice or asking for a replacement? And how long before you as a borrower do you process that replacement? Or I guess the question is, how long do you hold out hope that this book is going to show up?
We have 3 shipment days a week.
Mhm.
So we're shipping out just about every other day. And it would depend on when the borrowing library, how often they receive the shipments. If they only receive once a week, then it takes at least a week for the item to arrive.
Mhm.
And then maybe another week if it hasn't arrived. So at least a couple of weeks before you would think that it had gone astray. And
Okay.
yeah, at least a couple of weeks. And then maybe give a phone call or speak directly to the borrowing library or vice versa, to actually talk to somebody about it. As to, did you send it out? Yes, we did. And you haven't received it? No. And just some kind of communication. And then we didn't know if there was communication with the courier people.
Mhm.
If they had a warehouse where something might have gone astray, or be sitting in the back of the truck or the warehouse, a crate.
I can answer that.
Sure.
Anytime an item goes missing, I email them and ask them to check the bin for the library it was supposed to go to in case whoever's taken the items out just missed it. And then I also confirm with them because when the delivery vehicles get back at the end of the day, they unload everything and then they sort it that night. So unless it's been mislabeled or they missorted it, then it should have been unloaded. We did once about a year ago, they found a bin that had a batch of stuff that had not been sorted. And so that solved a fair number of ones that had been missing for several months. And so they tightened down their sorting procedures after that. But I also have a report that I update every month and I share it with Jeff at priority so that we can see where delays are happening and where anything has gone missing. So all of the information that you send me, I give to them, and we've recently turned it into a spreadsheet so we can figure out all of the trends more easily. So it does all get passed on to the courier. Oh, and Noreen said sometimes we get a bag meant for another library. Yes, sometimes they do missort them. So, yes.
There's good oversight is what you're saying, April. And yet, I've seen libraries will say, or put up there, we were due a delivery of a book, but it never showed up. And can everybody check?
Mm-hmm.
Is that just common practice that is the first step? It's just to make sure that it hasn't been misdelivered
Yes.
to something else.
I typically ask people to do that at the same time.
Okay.
I figure the double hit of asking, did it show up here? And also, did it get stuck in a bin in the warehouse gives the most speedy results.
Okay, so maybe a month, maybe we should, is a month reasonable or what do you think?
The chat has a couple people saying 3 months just because if you're getting it from a library that has one delivery a week and it's going to a library that has one delivery a week, that can extend it up to 3 weeks.
There you go.
Most people are saying they do 3 months or 2 to 3 months.
Okay.
And this isn't going in the best practices document. This was just a topic I was asked to start a conversation on because
Yes.
they were worried that they were bugging other libraries. I have found that a lot of times just communicating has been really great. Marie says, I am all for over communication, but I do ask the lending library if they wouldn't mind checking their shelf because sometimes a book has made it back and it's on their shelf. And that does happen occasionally. And also she receives a misrouted book in her bin. She'll contact the library that it belongs to, but ideally there's paperwork so that she can let both lending and borrowing libraries know. And Renee said, I find other libraries to be very helpful and patient with books that may be missing. I have found that as well. And Kat says they are always up for checking shelves. We are as well. I have found sometimes that we've marked something as shipped and then I don't know where it went, but it ended up on our shelves again. So I would send it out again.
Yeah. We have ended up with other people's shelves.
But yeah, I think just a lot of it is direct communication between the libraries really helps figure it out because a lot of times if something's gone missing, it's been a case by case basis of do you want a replacement? Do you want an invoice? Do we want to wait longer? And a lot of times it depends on the specific title. Okay. Okay. I know I've said it before, but I think the interlibrary loan librarians have been fantastic, and I really like working with all of you. And Noreen said, you librarians are so helpful. Thank you for your patience. We all want to try our best. Thank you. We do. All right. That was everything on my agenda. Were there any other interlibrary loan topics anyone wanted to go over? No. Oh, Renee says Ilsley is new to lending and loaning DVDs. And she said, thanks. My patrons were sad when we decreased the number of DVDs we are purchasing. Next, I wonder about the extra packaging most DVDs are shipped in. She understands, but does not have a great place to store it. That one I think is, I don't remember if that is in the best practices. A lot of places, so what we do, she said it's hard to remember who sent a box versus a padded bag. We have by our interlibrary loan table, we keep the package and we stick Post-it on it saying what it was for, so that we remember to put it back in the box or the bag. Yeah, packaging is included in the best practices. Not actually. I thought we had added that. It's possible it is in the ILL code, but oh, the table she uses is the floor under my desk. Ours is it's a Random House box that lives under someone's desk, but it's got the Post-it with the label. Kat says they have a plastic bin. And Noreen says she doesn't mind if it comes back in a bag or a box as long as it has some sort of protection. And that's a general consensus, is everyone just wants the DVDs protected from being crushed, because when they're sorting, sometimes they are tossing the bags and you don't want everything to bust open inside of the bag. So I think overall people are just happy when it has a box or a padded envelope so that there is some protection in shipping. Okay. Anything else? Not just DVDs, sometimes audiobooks too. Yes. If it shows up in a packaging, that's why we stick the Post-it on our the packaging that it comes in. Usually there's also some kind of, I don't do all of our direct shipping. I fill in when everyone else is out. So I look through and try to find the Post-its, and Linda thankfully keeps really good notes on everything. But yeah, Kat says, when in doubt, add more packing. Reminds me of a movie I was watching that said if your duct tape isn't working, you just need more duct tape. Oh, and Kat also said crumpled newspaper is your friend. We also have a box of that and a very big bag of bubble wrap. All right. Okay, well, let me jump over here. Oh, and Kat says they throw out a bunch of newspapers at the college, so if you ever need some padding, just ask them. And Noreen wants to reiterate to check the notes. She asked for later due dates for a book club, and it wasn't checked. And then when she renewed it, they still didn't renew it for later. And Kat corrects to recycle, not throw out, recycle. But yes, people, it would be great if everyone was checking the notes. You can tell that you've received a request with a note because it'll have that little push pin icon, and you just click on it. I don't know who put the little fire icon on recycle, but I appreciate that. Yes, so please check the notes. And I will also, is there a way to print the notes on the book bands? You know, I'm not sure, but I can look into that. And if there's not, I can ask them to do that. Noreen said, what notes do you mean? In the borrower's notes, if you ask for an extended due date and they print out a book strap when they mail it, that would also help them. But yeah, I can check that. Gail said if a library wants an extended date for a book club, it would be nice if they said when the book club was. It's hard to guess how long they need the book. And that's a good point. And I think I actually sent out some requests and did not put in the date. So that is a good reminder. That I'll include that in my meeting notes. And if it's a thing that continues, we can also keep adding to the best practices and then officially update it every May. I have a folder in my email with the suggestions to add to the best practices. So if you tell me we should add this, I do track it. I generally like to send them out ahead of time. So if people can't make it to the meeting, they do have an opportunity to give feedback and chime in though. Marie says, do we have to keep the notes field professional? We can make the notes field an optional display on the book bands. Nothing is required. All right, so before I forget, our next meeting is Thursday, August 8th. And it is 10 a.m. to noon, and it is our annual in-person meeting. And it is most likely going to be in the community room in the Vermont Historical Society building. I tried to look at other state-owned spaces, and those were not great with parking availability and other problems with it. But unless the location changes, that is where everyone should assume it will be. But yes, it's Thursday, August 8th, 10 to noon. It's on our CE calendar if you forget and you want to look it up. And it's in person. And if you have any agenda items, please send them to me. And as always, keep all of the suggestions going for best practices, for any changes to any process that could help you with your interlibrary loans. We can always look at what we do at Department of Libraries and see what we can do better. So,
Did you say what time that meeting was? April?
10 to noon.
10 to noon.
Yes. And if you want to tell everyone how awesome our roundtable is, Joy and I are doing a Spark presentation on all of the roundtables and the director meetings and everything at the VLA conference, which hopefully I will see a lot of you at in a couple weeks. All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, April.
Thanks.